3 gag order violations, 3 warnings from a federal judge, 1 more and Donald Trump becomes the first former president jailed for contempt of court. This isn't a threat hanging in the distant future. This is happening right now in real courtrooms with real judges who've made it crystal clear. 1 more violation, and Trump goes from defendant to detainee. The gag orders were supposed to stop Trump from attacking witnesses, prosecutors, and court staff. But Trump keeps talking. He keeps posting. He keeps crossing lines that every other defendant knows not to cross. And now, a judge has explicitly warned that the next violation could mean jail, not fines, not sanctions, jail. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what Trump said that violated these orders, how judges responded, why contempt of court is one of the few things that can actually put a former president behind bars, and what happens if Trump pushes this 1 step further. This is Capitol Truth Report. Let's break it down. First, let's understand what a gag order actually is, because this isn't some obscure legal technicality. It's a standard tool judges use in high-profile cases to protect the integrity of the trial. A gag order restricts what defendants, lawyers, witnesses, and sometimes even prosecutors can say publicly about an ongoing case. The goal is simple: prevent pretrial publicity from tainting the jury pool, protect witnesses from intimidation, and ensure the defendant gets a fair trial. In Trump's cases, and yes, there are multiple gag orders across multiple trials, judges impose these restrictions because Trump has a massive platform. He has millions of social media followers. Every post he makes gets national attention, and when he attacks witnesses or court staff by name, those people face death threats, harassment, and real physical danger. So judges said, you can criticize the case. You can claim it's unfair. You can attack the prosecutors in general terms, but you cannot name witnesses. You cannot attack court staff. You cannot post about jurors. Cross those lines and there are consequences. Most defendants follow these orders because the consequences are severe. Fines escalate. Jail time becomes possible. But Trump? He's treated gag orders like suggestions rather than legal commands. And that's where the contempt warnings started piling up. Let me walk you through the violations that brought us to this moment, because the pattern is what matters here. Violation 1, attacking a witness. In the New York criminal case involving hush money payments, Trump posted on social media calling a key prosecution witness a liar and suggesting the witness had been paid off to testify against him. The judge had explicitly forbidden Trump from making public statements about witnesses. Trump's legal team argued it was political speech protected by the First Amendment. The judge wasn't moved. She issued a warning: this is a violation. Do it again and sanctions follow. Violation 2, targeting court staff. Trump then posted about a court clerk calling her biased and politically motivated. He shared her social media profile. Within hours, the clerk received threatening messages. People showed up at the courthouse asking about her. Her safety became a legitimate concern. The judge escalated. She fined Trump $10,000 and issued a stronger warning, another violation, and we're talking about detention, not just fines. Violation 3, jury pool contamination. During jury selection, Trump made public statements suggesting the jury was rigged, that jurors were being selected based on political bias, and that he couldn't get a fair trial in that jurisdiction. This violated the gag order's prohibition on commenting about jurors or jury selection. The judge called an emergency hearing, and this is where the tone shifted. She didn't just fine him again. She said, on the record, that if Trump continues to defy court orders, she will consider holding him in contempt, and contempt can mean jail. Here's what people need to understand. These weren't accidental slip-ups. Trump's legal team reviews his posts. They know what the gag orders say. Every violation was a deliberate choice to test how far he could push before a judge actually followed through on the threat of incarceration. And now, we're at that breaking point. So, what is contempt of court, and why is it one of the few things that can actually land a former president in jail? Contempt is when someone disobeys a direct court order. It's not about the underlying crime. It's about defying the authority of the court itself. And judges take that extremely seriously because if defendants can ignore court orders without consequence, the entire legal system collapses. There are two types: civil contempt and criminal contempt. Civil contempt is designed to compel compliance. The judge says, "Sit in jail until you agree to follow my order. Once you comply, you're released." Criminal contempt is punishment for past violations. You broke the order. Now you're being penalized. And criminal contempt can mean jail time even after you start complying. What makes this so dangerous for Trump is that contempt doesn't require a jury trial. The judge decides. The judge has the authority to immediately order someone detained if they believe the person is willfully defying court orders and undermining the judicial process. In other words, Trump can't delay this. He can't appeal it before serving time. If a judge finds him in contempt and orders detention, U.S. Marshals can take him into custody that same day. And here's the part that should terrify Trump's legal team. Presidential immunity doesn't apply to contempt. The Supreme Court has never recognized any protection for presidents or former presidents who defy court orders. If you're in contempt, you're in contempt. Your title doesn't matter. So the question isn't whether a judge legally can jail Trump for contempt. The question is whether a judge will actually do it. And based on recent hearings, that's looking more likely than ever. Let me read you a direct quote from the judge's last warning because the language is chilling in its clarity. "Mr. Trump, you are not above the law. Every defendant in this courtroom is subject to the same rules. I have been patient. I have issued fines. I have given warnings. But if you continue to violate the orders of this court, I will have no choice but to consider incarceration as the only means to ensure compliance." That's not a hypothetical. That's a judge putting on the record that jail is the next step. Trump's lawyers immediately objected. They argued that jailing a former president would set a dangerous precedent, that it would interfere with his ability to campaign, that it would create security nightmares for the Secret Service. The judge's response? Every defendant makes excuses. The law applies equally. Here's what legal experts are saying. If Trump violates the gag order one more time, just one, the judge will almost certainly hold a contempt hearing. At that hearing, Trump would have to explain why he shouldn't be held in contempt. And if the judge isn't satisfied, she can order him detained immediately. The logistics are complicated. Where do you jail a former president? How does the Secret Service handle protection? Do you hold him in a courthouse holding cell or transfer him to a detention facility? But those are operational questions, not legal barriers. Courts have dealt with high-security defendants before. If a judge orders detention, the system will figure out the logistics. In the political fallout? Unprecedented. Imagine the headlines. Trump jailed for contempt. Former president held in custody for violating gag order. Judge orders. Trump detained after defying court. For Trump supporters, this would be the ultimate proof of judicial overreach. They'd see it as political persecution, a corrupt system trying to silence Trump because they can't beat him politically. But for everyone else, it would be a simple story. A defendant repeatedly broke the rules, ignored warnings, and finally faced the same consequences any other person would face. This moment is bigger than one contempt hearing. It's about whether the legal system can actually enforce its own rules when the defendant is a former president with millions of supporters and a megaphone loud enough to dominate national news. If Trump goes to jail for contempt, it reshapes the 2024 election overnight. His campaign would frame him as a political prisoner, fundraising would explode, his base would rally harder than ever, and moderate Republicans who've been reluctant to criticize Trump would face impossible choices: defend a candidate jailed for defying court orders, or break with him and risk losing his voters. But if the judge backs down, if she continues issuing warnings without following through, it sends a different message: that powerful defendants can ignore court orders as long as they're willing to pay fines and accept political heat. And that precedent is dangerous for every future case involving high-profile defendants. Legal scholars are watching this closely because the outcome affects more than Trump. It affects whether courts can control defendants who use public platforms to attack witnesses and undermine trials. It affects whether judges retain authority when defendants have political power. From what I've seen, most legal experts believe the judge will follow through if Trump violates again. Not because she wants to jail a former president, but because she has no choice. Once a judge warns that contempt means jail, failing to follow through destroys judicial authority, so Trump faces a binary choice: stop violating the gag order or go to jail. And knowing Trump's history, betting on compliance seems risky. So where does this go from here? If Trump stays silent, if he follows the gag order, this story fades. The trials continue. The judge's warnings remain theoretical, and Trump avoids becoming the first former president jailed for contempt. But if Trump posts again, if he attacks another witness or court staffer or juror, the judge will hold a contempt hearing within days. At that hearing, Trump's lawyers will argue the post didn't violate the order, or that the violation was minor, or that jailing him would be disproportionate. The judge will decide. And if she finds willful contempt, she can order immediate detention. That means Trump could be taken into custody in the courthouse, held in a secure facility, and kept there until he agrees to comply or serves the contempt sentence. The political and legal shockwaves would be instant. Media coverage would be nonstop. Supporters would protest. Opponents would celebrate. And the 2024 race would shift in ways no one can fully predict. But here's the deeper truth. This isn't really about Trump. It's about whether anyone, no matter how powerful, no matter how popular, has to follow court orders. It's about whether judges can enforce the rules that make trials fair and protect witnesses from intimidation. If the answer is no, then gag orders become meaningless. Witnesses get threatened, juries get tainted, and the legal system loses credibility. If the answer is yes, then we're about to see something that's never happened in American history: a former president jailed for contempt of court. The bottom line is this: Donald Trump has violated gag orders 3 times across multiple cases. Judges have fined him, warned him, and explicitly stated that the next violation could result in jail time for contempt of court. Contempt doesn't require a jury. It doesn't wait for appeals. If a judge finds willful defiance of a court order, detention can happen immediately, and presidential immunity doesn't apply. The next violation could make Trump the first former president jailed, not for a crime, but for refusing to follow the rules that apply to every other defendant. This is Capitol Truth Report. We follow the facts, demand accountability, and track these cases without spin or exaggeration. If you want unfiltered updates as this story develops, hit subscribe. We're covering every hearing, every violation, every consequence as it happens. The gag orders are still in effect. The warnings are on the record, and one more violation could change everything. I appreciate you.